But yeah, it's really important because, like, especially when it comes to health, which is what I deal with a lot, like on a daily basis. You know, when people come in every day, and I won't say everybody, but just about every new person or new patient that I meet or that I run into, they think they have almost zero control over their overarching health and the things that are coming to them, and it's freaking crazy. They come in and they think that somebody else's oh man, what's it called? Biography. Sorry if I lost my train of thought. They think that someone else's biography, someone else's choices are going to dictate what happens to them, which is crazy. And what I mean by that is, like, someone else's bad choices don't have a pure influence on you. And what I mean by that, a lot of people come in and be like, oh, well, this runs in my family. I have high blood pressure. I'm overweight. For instance, my dad has high blood pressure. He's overweight. My grandfather, same thing, yada, 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 right? So it's like this whole bullshit train of, like, other people have this thing from poor choices and lifestyle. So that means I have to have it. It runs in our family. Now, influences run in your family. Learned behaviors run in your family. Like, you know, the things that you see, the things that you think, the decision trees that you make. Like when you see a choice, like, should I eat donuts every day for breakfast? Like, that's a decision, right? Like, that's not, and that can be influenced, right? That can be influenced by, like, what you saw and modeled from your parents as a kid, but that's not determined. Like, it's not like God came down and wrote that in your storybook. Like, you're going to have to do that. Like, you have free will. You can make your own choices when it comes to that. And a lot of people don't like hearing that. So it's kind of tough. But what I mean, like, someone else's bad decisions, someone else's lifestyle, someone else's biography don't dictate your future. You have a fresh canvas to a point. Like I said, I know there's some things that we can't control, and we don't worry about those. Like, those are things that are happening. But what about the things that you can control? Like when it comes to, like, high blood pressure, diabetes, particularly type 2 diabetes, which is the kind, type 1 diabetes is where, like, your pancreas doesn't make enough insulin or doesn't make insulin at all or the proper levels, and you can't get sugar out of your blood. That's a whole different scenario as opposed to type 2 diabetes, which is where you eat yourself into sickness, right? Like, that's different. Like, your body started off fantastic and then you ate your way to sickness, right? And I'm not, like, ragging on anybody or anything, but, like, it's one of those things that happens, right? Those are just poor choices. And until you've owned up to those poor choices, you're always going to be a victim. You're always going to think that you don't have control or you don't have power to change the things that you want to have in your life. Like someone else's bad choices, someone else's diabetes, someone else's obesity, someone else's laziness, somebody else's, like, not looking into better nutritional things or different ways to, you know, I'm just using nutrition for an example because it's a pretty easy one. And it's what I read the other day, like 45% of Americans are obese right now. Not overweight. That's a whole different category. Obese is above overweight. So I think 45% of us right now in our country are overweight. And that's a choice. Like, I know that, you know, the different people have different metabolisms and things like that. So if you're going to hit me with, like, I'm big boned, that's not true. I take x-rays all day long. Our bones are the same, right? Now, we do metabolize food different, which is kind of, you know, which is unique that we're all humans, but that way that we metabolize food is totally different on the inside, which is kind of trippy. So it takes some effort. It takes some trial and effort. It takes some heartaches. It takes some struggles. I'm not saying things are easy, but it is within your own wheelhouse of choices. But, like, you know, coming back to the point, if you look at these things that are happening to you, like you're a victim, like you don't have any control over it, then why would you try to fix it? Like, why would you try to better your life? When it comes to anything, it doesn't have to be health or being overweight or diabetes and stuff like that. Those are just two I focus on because everyone knows no one made you eat the Big Mac. Like, what was it, the first episode, the second episode? There's, like, so many chemicals and so much crap and so much shit stuff into like a Big Mac is barely even food when you eat it. So, like, no one's making you eat this chemical sandwich every day or every other day or, you know, whenever you're on your way home from school or from work or you know, all that type of stuff because it's convenient. Like, no one makes you do that. Like, that's not genetic. That's a personal choice, you know, and that comes down to personal responsibility, which is hard. You know what I mean? And I can vouch for that because, let's see, it's been, I don't know, about 7 years now, about 6 or 7 years ago, I lost 100 pounds, right? So I ate my way into an obese person. There was nothing like made me do all the poor choices and the easy choices and the laziness that I did. And it wasn't like massive. It wasn't like I'm going to eat McDonald's every day and never move. It didn't happen like that. It was like little tiny invisible choices that happened over and over and over and over again. And that's a good point. I don't know if we like invisible. I don't know if you ever thought about this. Invisible choices are what lead to a storybook ending and a storybook life, as opposed to bad or negative invisible choices that you make that lead to a disaster.
Never 99, the podcast that takes an untraditional view on health in the world and breaks it down in a way that makes sense. 99% is never enough. Always 100 with your hosts, Dr. O and Olive.